Hello, and welcome to the Best of Why Not Both, the show where we interview people about, well, like everything ever. For these episodes, we are going to be taking clips from some of our favorite interviews and just, putting them out like little appetizers, like little teasers. So that way you can get a flavor for some of our favorite chats. If you like what you hear, you can go to the show notes for these episodes and check out the full interviews so that you can hear the unedited, completely unhinged conversations that we have had with the most wonderful people over the course of the last several years. Our first clip is from a chat that we had with the wonderful luminary musician, Aurora. We got to talk all about collaboration and about just that wonderful dance between you and others and the creative forces within.
What was it like actually running a festival? I was like, that seems like a lot of work.
Yeah, it was a lot of work, but I have the time now.
Yeah.
So it's fine, and you get used to as an artist, or I guess in many professions that I also don't know about, but you get quite used to working without kind of getting paid, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And I guess you know what I'm talking about, and many people can be creative businesses, or you get used to that you have to work a lot without knowing if you'll get anything back. And maybe one day it all comes to you get back for all the work you did. And in this case, all the money was split between the artists, which I hope can help them do something. I don't know, but I hope it can help in some way. But it was really fun. I really enjoy being interviewer, or like what do you call the person who's talking all the time in the I like being that person. It was very fun, and it was very fun to kind of push them by asking way too deep, way too large questions that's impossible to answer, and that's how I learned what a profession that is, to actually be an interviewer, how complicated it is to actually find out what is the right thing to ask a person. I kind of know what a talent that actually is for people, in people that are actually good. When I was trying to do it myself, it's very hard to ask people questions.
It is. You have to somehow read the person accurately while then thinking several steps ahead.
Yeah, but you have. And I really noticed that it's a real talent, and it's really hard. And I'm going to give kudos to every person interviewing me from now on. Because it's really hard. And you have to kind of look at the person and ask what will be the best moment, and how can you get the best out of this person. It might be a different question than you had planned. So I often had to kind of change my mind and ask them. I don't know. No, it was a learning experience.
That's fascinating. It sounds almost like when, I don't know if you've had this experience, but when you're recording with someone and you have an idea in your head of what you might want them to do on the instrument that you don't play, that they play, but then all of a sudden they play something completely different and you're like, oh, hold up. Actually, that was better. Oh, wait, that actually changes what I'm doing over here. Okay, let me, and all of a sudden it turns into this dance where you're like, wait, you surprised me. Let me change course. Hang on a second.
It's perfect. That's when it becomes true magic between people, when you can make something together that didn't only come from the intended wish you had for this person, but they just contribute with whatever that they have in their heart to whatever you're doing. And yeah, it really, that's the most magical thing I know when that happens.
And it's still like a sense of trust that you have with someone, that you can kind of give them your intention and they can give you an intention back, and you can listen to it and go, this actually made a third bit.
Beautiful.
This makes me want to just play lots of music now.
Me too.
And it's such a different world when you do get to kind of collaborate with others. I was wondering, like, I know that you'd been producing more of the stuff that was on your newer records, and I was wondering what's the difference for you, at least, when you are producing your own material versus when you're co-producing with someone else, or even when you ask someone else to produce a song that you wrote.
Well, I've always co-produced all of my songs because it doesn't make sense for me. You know, it's a very obvious thing, I think, for most people that writes their own music and have an idea of how they want it to sound. It's not really special either, because if you know, you know, and then you'll do anything to make the music sound just like you dreamt it would in your mind, in your heart. And that's my favorite thing about being an artist, I think, is the producing part. That was the only difference between when I wrote songs at home and when I became an artist. The only difference was that now I'm in a studio and I have the tools and the chance to shape this song, this soul, and give it a body so it can survive out there in the world. And it's very fun. And sometimes it's like I just need a technician, because I don't want to be stopped by my own slow fingers. That's very nice to kind of just have someone you can boss around and tell them what to do, and they will do it for you. And I often argue when people try to mean something about my music. So I'm actually really bad in working with other people. And I know that you can get a lot of good coming out of that. So I know I have to learn, you know, not too much, but I have to learn a bit more to trust people and to kind of open up to other people's opinions. But it's difficult when it's your child, you know.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, but I won't open up too much, just like a tiny bit, because I might learn something. But in my experience, often you don't really get better things from other people than what you have in your own head when it comes to your own music. But then I have met people on my way that can understand me, you know, like me and my drummer Magnus. We have made the first album together, and a different kind of human. And we also produced Exist for Love together.
Ooh.
He really understands me and respects me, and he can contribute to my music because he knows me already. You know, he knows what I like, and he knows. And if I explain to him that I want it to sound like a volcano, he knows what I mean.
Yes.
So it's all about that language, this floating thing, and the way we talk about music. That's very important, because it's not the same word library as other places. You know, it has its own word library. So it's very important that this person you're in the studio with is sharing that with you, if that makes sense.
Oh, that completely makes sense to me. When someone understands your, like, because I guess when it's a vision, I was going to say your vision, but it's not, because it's a sonic vision. And at least with visual visions, you could perhaps like sketch them out for someone. But when you're trying to describe like the emotion of the sound, if someone doesn't get that, it's nearly impossible to describe. So when someone actually does get it, that's so just invaluable. Like when someone actually gets it.
It's perfect. And I love producing together with one person, or like with Magnus especially, because it's it's very fun. It's very, very fun. It's like a dance, and I really like dancing.
I had actually wondered if you were a dancer, because watching the way that you moved in your videos, I was like, gosh, she's so graceful at expressing her songs through her body and through her hands and through her face. I was just like, I bet Aurora's a dancer.
Yeah, I am actually, or I was. I was a dancer for 10 years, but then I had to quit because I became an artist, and the dancing took a lot of time, but then being an artist took even more time. But I can still dance. I'm just not learning it from anyone. I'm just doing what feels right. But yeah, I've definitely gotten used to movement, and I find moving around very comfortable. At times, even more comfortable than standing still. If that makes sense.
That completely makes sense.
And
I love the way, I remember seeing you perform, and you were wearing almost like kind of like a skirt with multiple layers of it. So that way when you were dancing and when you were moving around the stage, it looks so ethereal and lovely. And I was wondering, did you design some of the clothes that you wear?
Well, it kind of. I buy a lot of vintage. No, first of all, my older sister, Victoria, she is a designer and a seamstress, so she can actually make things look very, very professional and proper looking. And me and her make all the music video and mostly the music video attires together. And like when I went to the Oscars, me and her made my red carpet look. And because I like when I know where things are made from. I don't like the fashion industry and the factories so much. So I like knowing that, you know, we make things ourselves, and you know, I like knowing where things come from. But besides from that, I make vintage clothes, and I can't help it but to cut into every clothing I have. And so those kind of skirts are often just some long skirts that I cut short and I put them on top.
Yes.
So I'm just wearing like a lot of stuff. I like a jellyfish, or like something that could live in the sea, you know, because I like light fabrics that could move in the air, like almost like I was underwater, because I feel like it gives such a magical look, just like you mentioned. And I want my audience to be able to dream themselves away for the for the hour.
Well, and that's such a beautiful experience to combine basically your talents and your sister's talents, and then use this to serve the music in a way, so that you have this beautiful visual of, I love that, like a jellyfish but in the air. I was like, ooh, that is a perfect description, because I remember seeing it. It was like the lights kind of bounced off your skirt, and I couldn't tell like how many layers there were, but now that makes total sense, that it looked like it was kind of rippling. And I was like, wow, what a fascinating piece of clothing. That looks so cool. You're welcome. And that, I mean, that speaks to a certain dedication also to the songs that you're making. Like you said, that it's like, you know your music the best, and you know the message of your songs the best, and it sounds like you express them in so many different ways.
Yeah, well, music is more than sound, and I know that you agree. I can hear that, and even in the curtains you bought, you know, we have like a bigger expression, I guess, of what is aesthetically pleasing to the brain and the heart, you know.
Yes.
For me also, you know, it's all about it's everything. I have lots of dried flowers in my room, and they are kind of built around my piano, and they kind of look like an altar, like in a church, like someone have died, but in a and I love being surrounded by my dried flowers when I write music, because they are beautiful, and they look old but young at the same time, and I love that about, you know, music and clothing. And it's not the most important thing, of course, but when you have the time and you have the drive force to do it, I don't mind caring about that as well. I find it really, really fun, because it's a playground, to just be playful and free and celebrating being a woman, and it's just fun.
Well, it sounds like when you said about, as artists, we do this work not knowing what we get back. It sounds like, in a way, sometimes that's what we get back. Though, of course, we can't pay rent on fun alone. At the same time, it's that wholehearted feeling of just like, I'm at least having a good time.
The second clip is from a conversation we had with the musician Sudan Archives. It's funny to think that years ago, we both played at a clothing store during Echo Park Rising, and it's just been such a pleasure over the years to see her meteoric rise and to see people appreciating her music that I heard so long ago and found absolutely magical. In this clip, we got to chat about how multiple influences have found their way into her music and how multiple spheres of her life have amalgamated into song. So you were mentioning when we were chatting earlier that you'd also studied ethnomusicology.
I wanted to, because I was at community college and I was like, had a goal. If I get my associates here, I plan to go to UCLA because that's the best school for ethnomusicology.
Yeah.
And I really wanted, I just had that goal. But now I still kind of study ethnomusicology, but on my own terms, in my own time. I've learned so much from other ethnomusicologists.
Who have you been studying?
Francis Bebe is an ethnomusicologist, and he is the pioneer of African electronic music.
Ooh. I was like, I don't know anything about that, so tell me more.
He's from Cameroon, and he plays a bunch of different instruments, and he makes he fuses it with electronic music, and it's really cool. Yeah. Wow. He also is an author. He has some books on just some love stories, and he has a book that I have both of the books, and he has this one book about string music.
Oh, yeah, because you blend a lot of different things in with your music. Do you feel like that's kind of what informed what you're doing now musically?
Well, yeah. Him?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he was probably the one that helped me create my own fusion. Because there's a lot of people that I take inspiration from, but it's not like they're doing this fusion thing. There's this artist in Sudan who plays the violin and sings at the same time, but it's very traditional folk music. It's Sufi music almost. And then there's a lot of violinists around the world that do this playing and singing in their own way. But this guy, he kind of has incorporated electronic music, and he's very psychedelic.
Oh,
too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you were saying you have a whole electronic setup. What is your setup currently?
It's a SP404 drum machine, and that's where I usually have my drums and instrumentals. And then I have a loop station, and then I have a whole guitar pedal just for effects for the violin.
Oh my gosh.
Guitar pedal board.
Yeah, that makes total sense that you take inspiration from him, because I was thinking about when I was listening in the car. You can hear some of the loops, but then, the rhythms that you're using are definitely not from Western music. So it's this really interesting fusion of Western and African music.
Yeah.
I'm I want to nerd out about that.
Yeah. I don't even know if it's, Western percussion. I just feel like it's some weird experimental percussion. Because, it's not I studied the drums. It's, more so was influenced by all of these, African artists with the string music and their approach to kind of just their strong song structure, how they can have their string instrument of choice and then their voice, and how it kind of goes back and forth in the structure of that. But with percussion and stuff, I feel it just comes from just taking a bunch of psychedelics and just making drums
and just making things happen.
Beats, and people are this sounds like South African music, and I'm cool. Okay.
Well, do you think, because you've traveled a bunch, do you feel things that you've like discovered in your travels have maybe informed some of the things that end up coming out?
Probably, because I mean, I traveled here to LA from Cincinnati, and then that's how I was able to kind of like experiment even more, because there was like there's like a really strong experimental beat scene here. So I feel like that had a big influence on me. And then when I went to Ghana, probably that did something too, because they have like strong beat patterns that they use in all their music.
Right.
You know? And probably just like even way back, I was playing Irish jigs. That's how I learned violin.
Oh my goodness. So those are fascinatingly different genres.
It's fascinatingly different, but it's definitely very similar. Like Irish jigs, African folk music, they all play off of the same scales and stuff.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It's just like
they all make you want to move.
Yeah, they all make you want to move, but they all have a jig kind of style.
Yeah.
You know.
And when you were traveling in Ghana, like, how long were you there for?
Just like a month.
Yeah. Did you go, like, what did you see there? I ask because that's a really interesting thing when you were talking about, like, the different influences of, like, oh, this ethnomusicologist, and then traveling here and traveling there. Do you feel like you picked up anything special there? Because I think, didn't you film a video there?
Yeah, I filmed a music video there. But I originally went there right when I got signed to Stone's Throw. I had already planned on going there because I was volunteering for a nonprofit. Oh. And we basically raised money for their first school bus. And then we were going out there to basically teach like DIY production.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah, and we brought some pushes and some laptops, and then we brought someone who worked at Pandora, who knew how to work Ableton really well. And then we went there and just kind of like had fun.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Who were you teaching?
Who were we teaching? Like kindergarten to maybe like 5th grade. Yeah.
What did they think of it?
They were like having so much fun because they already play like hand drums and like drums with the sticks. So once we told them kind of like it's the same thing, you know, with your fingers, they were just like killing it.
I was right? I was like, they'd be the best beat makers.
Yeah.
Wow. And I was thinking about that, you're like, oh, I got to teach for this nonprofit. Like, I was thinking kind of when I started the podcast, like why people think that, especially if you're a musician or you're an artist, that's like the only thing that you do. But I feel like that's such a small fraction of what we do. Like, what are some of the other things that you feel like you do that do inform your music, but like the other things outside of just strictly music? Like if someone's like, oh, what do you do outside of that?
Right, yeah. I feel like I'm more of like a visual artist than anything, you know. I love putting together like mood boards. I love helping people bring their visions to life and stuff. Like, because the nonprofit that I worked for, I was helping with like the creative side of it and like the perks of what you get when you donate. And we did like the CD compilation that you would get as a gift if you donated a certain amount of money. Ooh. And I like to I love fashion. I love like I just love fashion, I guess. Yeah, I feel like the outfits you choose on stage can really like project the performance and stuff, you know. And self-care, I love just taking care of myself and mixing together my own products for myself.
Ooh.
You know? It's fun.
I was wondering, I was like, oh gosh, I have 2 questions. I was wondering, what are some of your favorite things that you've worn on stage, and what do you feel like they project?
The favorite thing, probably this designer named Abdel El Tayeb. He's from Sudan, and the story is even more of a reason why I like wearing his stuff, but his clothes are just as great. But we met in Paris, and he came to one of my performances, and he found me because of my name and where he's from. It just kind of like sparked an interest, so he came to my show, and he was like, got really into the music, and basically was explaining that he is trying to incorporate Sudanese traditional wear with modern wear, and he feels like in a way that's what I'm doing with music, and he would think that he thought that we'd make a really good team with like fashion, and he wanted to make me clothes.
Oh my god!
And then I was like, okay, how about you make me a dress for Coachella?
Just
and
casual.
Like, what, really? And I was like, yeah. So he basically,
that's amazing.
Yeah. So he basically flew out here for my first Coachella gig performance, and he dressed me, and it was like amazing.
Oh my gosh!
The dress was like hand woven material, and he just like, it took him like 300 hours to make it. It was like,
whoa,
it was crazy.
That's intense.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. And like right now I'm like, you're wearing this like amazing color. And like, how would you describe that color?
Do you want to know what this?
Yeah.
I guess neon yellow green.
Yeah, because it's like, it's not quite green, but it's not quite yellow. It's like right in between.
Do you want to see what I'm wearing for Vegas?
Yeah.
Because I have a festival. That's why I was playing with makeup. Performance in Vegas.
Oh my gosh.
I'm trying to look like a salon. What do you think?
Whoa. Oh my god, it's amazing. I'm like, I want to touch it, but I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay, how do we describe this to people? This is the most like, it's like these black, beautiful feathers that have this gorgeous iridescent.
Black rooster.
Black rooster. That's like, oh my gosh.
But can you see it?
I can 100% see. Now I get the eye makeup.
Yeah? Okay.
Because you're wearing this amazing, this like beautiful, like black winged iridescent eye makeup.
I was kind of scared for this look because it's kind of like one of those hate or love looks.
I mean, I love it, but I love that it's dark and yet iridescent at the same time. And the feathers, they don't look like... I love how on the shoulders they make almost like, kind of like an epaulette. It looks like it would go like this way. Mm-hmm. Like it would make this beautiful design here, but then it goes back down at the arm. Wow.
Because like one of my friends was like, I hate it. Like,
what?
You know? And then one of my friends was like, that's hard, you know?
Yes.
So the fact that it doesn't matter if you like it or you hate it, the fact that it creates a strong emotion.
It sparks such an emotion because it's such like a classic silhouette, but it's completely covered in feathers.
Yeah.
And like you never see that. You usually see feathers as like an accent.
Uh-huh. Oh. So the fact that it's like you hate it or you love it, but either way you strongly hate it or you strongly love it, that's what makes me want to like, okay, I want to wear it.
You're like, I want to do it.
Yeah.
For our final clip of this episode, we got to talk to the brilliant artist and DJ HANA, and this was such a fun conversation. We chatted all about how she created an album live on Twitch, which to me sounds just frankly panic-inducing. But to hear her talk about it, it was alchemical magic.
And so it was like 2 years ago or so when my studio was like getting rewired and all my computers were just like sitting around the room and I couldn't work, you know, like, and so for like a week, I had a week where I wasn't going to be able to be like working in the studio. And I was like, I guess this is just the moment to set up the stream. So I did and I was just like immediately very into it because it was just fun. It was fun to connect with. I mean, at first I just had no idea who was going to like log on. It was mostly like fans who have been listening to my music for either a really long time or are new fans or whatever. They would log on and it was just fun to play games and talk to people at the same time.
Yeah.
And I just immediately, I just enjoy talking to people. I'm just that kind of person that just is, I really enjoy conversation and connecting and asking people about stuff about their lives. And so it was just immediately something that was really fun. And that seemed to actually be growing or bringing my fan base like close together and making it something, I don't know, kind of giving it a space to just hang out, you know, like I think before this, I had just been kind of frantically like putting out music, and I had people that are listening to it, but I don't know, it's just kind of scattered. I have like this whole previous music career too, where I have fans from that, where I was like going by my first and last name. And this was, I don't know, it randomly just brought a lot of people out of the woodwork to just be like, hey, what have you been up to? And I was just like, oh, well, this is what I've been up to. You know, like I worked on this, I worked on this, and blah, blah, blah.
That's amazing.
Over like the next year, I started to like occasionally make a beat or do like a little concert. And that was when the response was like really good. Obviously, because I'm a musician, I'm not like a super amazing gamer. It's more just like what I do in my free time. You know? So that was when I saw the response was just like, oh yes, you know, like way more viewers, and people were just always wanting me to do it more. And then I started one day making a beat on there, and the response to that was super positive. And then the idea was just kind of like, I was like, what if I could I make an entire album like 100% on stream and do it in kind of a short,
right,
like 4 weeks, but go in, you know, like originally I was going to even be streaming on the weekends too.
I
did Monday through Friday for 4 weeks in a row, but I was really interested in just, you know, I mean, it's kind of like one of those classic, like drive out to a cabin in the middle of nowhere and make an album, you know, but it was different because it was in my house, but it was just this other thing that was going to be pushing me, you know.
Like you drove out to the cabin of the internet.
Yes, exactly.
Bonnie Bear of the internet. There we go.
So after I came up with the idea, which was actually kind of early last year, it was in like April that I started planning it. And I was really wanting to just start it right away. Like I wanted to start May 1st, but then random stuff just kept happening, and I kept just planning more and more. And but then the time was late September, and that's when I started. I got it all set up, got all of the cameras set up, but it took like quite a bit of preparation.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I was like, you know, it was just like a lot of planning because I knew that I wanted it to also come out really soon afterwards, because it was a lot of like mentally tricking myself into putting stuff out. Like that was another part of this, like for sure, because I hadn't released music in quite a while. I think 2016 was the last time that I put something out. I mean, I had done little things here and there, like remixes, and then I put out like a little cover or whatever, and then did We Appreciate Power, and that's when I was like, okay, that was when I started, like right before then, that's when I started going like really in on like finishing a lot of music, which actually some of it is going to be coming out soon. Some of that stuff that I was like really going hard on last year. But then it became this weird thing of like, okay, well, I know I want to make an album on Twitch, but then I'm also working on this other music. And then I started, you know, tricking. It was like, then I was just thinking about it all too much. And I was like, I just need to start this, because if I keep trying to plan this spontaneous album in my life, it's just going to drive me crazy. So I was just like, I just need to pull the trigger and just see what happens with this album, you know?
So funny. And it's almost like in a way, like kind of placing like limitations and boundaries on what you could do by being like, okay, I have to do it in this room. I want to do it in this time frame. Like in a way that kind of enabled you to do it, where it sounds like almost before you had like almost like too many possibilities. I was like,
totally.
Well, sound amazing, but I'm like, you can't do everything at the same time. So I would just, if I were in your shoes, I would have been sitting there just being like, nah.
It was like decision paralysis for sure. And so it was like, okay, I'm getting rid of all of my, I don't know. I just had built up my next release so much in my mind. And I just didn't even know how to like start putting out music again. And just because I was just so overwhelmed, I was like, oh, do I do this or do I do this or do I do this? And so doing the album was like this way of me having a deadline, and then also over the course of 4 weeks getting my audience invested in my deadline as well, so I can't not finish it.
You're like, so legit is a deadline as opposed to one of those deadlines that are in your calendar. You're like, I can move that.
Yeah, which I'd been doing for so long. Like I'd had so many deadlines because I'm independent, and like at the time, I mean, now I have a manager, but at the time I didn't have a manager. So I was just like, oh, okay, March seems like a good deadline for myself. And then if like March coming, I'd be like, oh, this is like, could use so much work, or, and then I just work on stuff forever into infinity. And so this was like, I needed to be held accountable by someone other than someone in my life, because it's like the people in my life are just too nice or something.
That's so funny. And I think that also having people watch production work, because I'm in the same boat where like, I will just tweak things for months and months and months on end to the point where like I completely lose the plot of what I'm even
totally.
And having someone else just be like, oh, I think the song's done.
Yeah.
like, oh, maybe it is.
It's true. It's true. It's great. It also just it just made me really let go, because it was such an experiment, and I was just being so like free with, I don't know, I was just being gentle on myself for the first time. I don't even know why, because I'm normally just so stressed about every little thing in the song, and like, is that right? Is that not? Or, just like overthinking it every 2 seconds. And for some reason, just the absurdity of the project, it was just made me go just like, oh, well, I don't know. It's fine.
Well, that must have been, it's so funny when you're describing it to me. It sounds almost like a weird, like tight wire act. Because sometimes, I don't know if this has happened to you, but like, especially with like one of my analog synths that I swear is lightly haunted, I'll think that like a certain sound is going to come out of it. Like I'll make a patch for it, and then I'll start recording it. My synth is like, surprise.
Yes, you hate it.
Exactly. It's so funny. Like sometimes it'll just make sounds that I'm like, what? I didn't even touch anything. Like,
yeah.
What happened?
Like, I was just, I just feel now, I don't know. I just feel it got me just in the flow, in the flow state, and where you're just like going off of what makes you feel good and just less overthinking. Like, I think this was also just like a practice for me, and less thinking about technical things and just more thinking about like, how does it make me feel? And if I feel something, like there's probably a way to maybe make it sound a little better, and that's great, and I can deal with that later. But if like, what is the emotion giving me, and is it bringing me like joy? Is it bringing me peace? And just kind of like diving in as deep as I can there, rather than like overthinking a specific like LFO or whatever, or like a freaking hi-hat sound, which I could just like listen to.
Oh my God, the torture of finding hi-hat snares. Why?
Yeah. It was always drums that I would have to like hide the chat, just because I already like, that's such a just like never ending thing where I just take so long on them. But then the chat would come into play and just like start messing with my head. And so I would just, like, put a window over it, just because I'm like, this is already hard.
Well, and also in a way,
I don't need to be reading like these comments right
exactly. Now. You're like, trust me, trying to find the right snare is torture enough. No, I was thinking about how in the way you're describing it, you're also fulfilling both roles at the same time, where you're the writer and you're three roles, writer, musician, and producer, all at the same time, which in a way, like, I don't know, do you ever find that when you're producing someone else that you're able to get out of your head more, or you're in your head more when you're producing with someone else?
I mean, I haven't really done much for other people other than for remixes, which I think, remixes, I normally am just totally not in my head at all. I'm just like, let's just see where this goes. And this is fun,
Yeah.
I'm way less hard on myself and actually kind of like do cooler explorations sometimes. Like sometimes I'm like, why wouldn't I come up with this for myself?
Right.
I actually usually, I feel like that's actually a good practice, is to start like a beat thinking that it's not for myself, just because I don't know, or like work on something. I don't know. There's been multiple times where I'm like remixing something and then I'm like, oh wait, actually this I should just keep
like,
right
actually
over.
I should just use this.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause getting outside your own head, because they really are, and I think that hopefully people who watched your stream like understand kind of the different roles of being the musician and being the producer. And when you're doing both of them, it's like you have to kind of see outside yourself in a way.
Yeah.
That can be very difficult when you're in the process itself.
Yeah. It's super weird. I mean, I think I have bad experiences with like producers making my music sound like what I didn't want it to be in the end or something. And so now I'm just addicted to being the person that has the control or something. But then recently I've been doing more collaborations and just like finding such freedom. And I think, I feel like how I started this sentence is how I used to feel. I used to feel like, so, I don't know, just like I was just scared of giving up that control. And then after last year, I started just doing a ton of collaborations and just finding freedom and just giving up the files and just being like, see what you do with this. Like, I'm interested as long as I can get them back or like give you hello notes.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Best of Why Not Both. If you liked what you heard, please feel free to head over to those show notes and click over on the full interviews. That way you can listen to the episodes that contain the full interviews with these wonderfully talented artists. You can also like us and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform. Leave us a cute little 5-star review. When you do that, that means that more people actually get to hear our podcast, which, I like that. Hopefully you like that too. You can also head over to our Patreon to support us directly there, where you will find our bonus episodes and transcripts of our episodes and yummy little goodies like that. Until next time.